Hey there everyone, Chris Lavelle here from the sunny northeast of England. I'll try to speak as clearly as possible because we have a rather bizarre accent, and if I do slip into it and you misunderstand, then I do apologise. Okay, the lava road and why. Now the lava road itself is actually a real world brief which I received a few months ago. It needed to be turned around and produced within 2 days, and it needed to be a scrolling lava road coming towards the camera, cracking, filling with lava, with various lava spurts, etc. going on throughout, and it had to last for 4 minutes. Now you can imagine 4 minutes of Z space is a composition that probably won't work, so we had to come around with a solution for this. So rather than do a tutorial where everything looks pretty and you get something that looks nice but you can't really do anything with it, I thought it would be a good idea if we did something from the ground up, and I showed you how I work. It might help people, might give them an idea in how to produce a piece of work and how to think slightly differently. It might not, but then again it might, and that's important. Okay, so let's get into it. Okay, first let's create a new composition. We're going to call it Lava Road, and it's going to be 25 frames per second, 1280 by 720. You could have it any size you want, it doesn't really matter. This is the wrapper for our composition, our main composition. Okay, so now we'll create the road itself. The road image I created is basically just a texture which is 700 by 3000. It's a seamless texture which was created using Photoshop. So composition, new composition. As I said, it's 700 by 3000. Click OK. In fact, let's go back there and give it a name. I'm terrible at housekeeping and I do apologise. Naming things properly is just not one of my strong points, but for the purpose of this tutorial I will try. Okay, so this is the road, and what we need to do is import the road texture. There we are. And drop it into the road comp. Okay. And now we need to scroll the road. To do this, let's go to offset, apply offset, click 0 to shift the center up at 0 seconds. Let's make a keyframe. Let's go to about 10 seconds. The composition 3000 high. Let's shift it to 3000. You'll see that it scrolls to 10 seconds and then stops. Simple way to keep this scrolling is to press Alt, click on the stopwatch, and add a property expression, loop out cycle, and then you'll see it gets to 10 seconds but it keeps on scrolling. So we have a scrolling road. Go back to our main composition, drop the road composition inside, make it a 3D layer, rotate it by 270, and move it down. A quick preview shows the road scrolling towards us. Okay, simple enough. Now we're going to create a composition for the cracks that appear on the surface of the road. Composition, new composition. Again, use the same settings as previously for the road. Import the crack ping file. It's a ping file because of the alpha we need. The black here you see is the alpha channel, which is transparent, so we can see the road beneath the cracks. Rather than go through the old offset again, let's go back to the road, press Ctrl C to copy the effect, go to the cracks, Ctrl V, paste the effect, and you can see the cracks are now scrolling just as the road was. You will notice this area here. This is just me, again, being lazy, which I'm world champion at doing. This could easily be sorted out in Photoshop, as I'm sure most of you are aware. But for the purpose of this tutorial, I'm just going to leave it because you can't notice it anyway in the way we have the tutorial flowing. So let's go back to the lava road and let's drop in the cracks. You see, comp 1, I forgot already. Okay, let's rename that. That is going to be called cracks. Okay, and let's drop that above the road. To make it 3D, rotate it 270, and let's move it down to just above. Sorry, let's move it down to just above the road layer. I'll do it for now. We're going to tweak that a bit later, so that's not important. Okay, now the first thing we need to do is we need to create a mask on this composition, because we want the cracks to appear as we move throughout the road. So let's click the pen tool, and let's probably go to about there. Select the comp, select the mask, and invert it. I'm just going to move one of these anchor points down a touch. There you go. So as you can see, it looks as though the cracks are appearing, but at the moment they don't look like cracks because they're white. I can easily change that. Let's go into cracks, let's select the crack ping file, and let's just invert it. Back to the lava road, and now we see the cracks appearing now. Now what we want to do is we want to have these cracks fill up with lava as we move along. So in the project, Control D. By the way, I'm using Control D because I'm using a Windows machine here. For if you're using a Mac, it's probably going to be Option D. You need to substitute that for the Control key which I'm using. I'm not sure if that's the same for everything, but I'm sure you can figure it out. Anyhow, I'm going to duplicate that. Duplicate the cracks composition, and I'm going to rename the second one to lava. I'm going to drag it into the main comp above the cracks, and again I'm going to have to turn it to 3D, rotate it by 270, and just move it down on top of the previous cracks. So what we have there in effect is two compositions, both the same, but we're going to change the lava one. So let's go into lava one. Let's select the crack. We'll take the invert off because we don't need that anymore, so just delete that. There we have our cracks. Now we want to make the lava actually sit inside the cracks, so we need to thin the edges of this out a touch. So if we use the find edges, apply that, you'll see it shrinks it in just a touch. Let's give it some colour. Use the tint. Map the black to very dark red, white to bright orange. Give it a glow. Okay. And let's just check the project settings at this point. Now it's 8 bits per channel. If you're going to use the glow, I suggest you use the 32 bits or the 16 bits. It works much better. And let's drop the glow threshold down to see if we can bring some other colour out. There we have some nice yellow to yellowy orange in the middle. And we go back to the lava road, and there we see the cracks have now filled with lava. We need to apply the mask as we did with the road, sorry, with the cracks. But obviously we want the lava to fill up after the cracks have appeared, so we need to just take the mask a touch further back than we did with the cracks. Select the mask again and invert it, and there we see the cracks, the lava is following the cracks as we go along. Pretty good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the position of all three layers, all three compositions, just so the alpha on the lava and the cracks gets to a certain point where I'm happy with. At the minute it looks too flat and a bit bland. So for instance, the road, these are positions I had dialed in earlier after a bit trial and error to get the effect that I wanted. So I'm going to go 426 for the road. The cracks I'm going to put at 422.1, and the lava I'm going to put at 424.2. And there you see the different effect. You see the way it's almost like a displacement map or a bump map. It's a really nice effect. Okay, but it still looks a bit boring and a bit bland. So let's add a light. New light, point line will be fine, and let's just move it up. Illuminate a little bit. It's quite nice. The road itself is actually sitting on a lava field. We'll quickly create that. So we're going to go new solid, call it lava field, and we're going to go to turbulent noise. We're going to give it some colour by tinting it. Try and remember the same colours we used for the lava itself, or as close as possible, I suppose. There you go. Now we're going to make it a 3D layer. We're going to pull it down below the other compositions. We're going to rotate it again by 270. Oops. And move it down. I'm going to have to scale it a touch. Yeah, that's pretty good. You can't see it very well at the moment, but what we'll do is we'll simply just put a glow on it. That's a bit better. We can start to see it coming through now. Glow intensity, we can change that at any point. Again, you can change whatever turbulence you like to use. So that's pretty good. And we're going to import the background now. So a file, import. Now this is just a very bad quality picture I'm using here, but let's just I don't know, blur it out a touch. Okay, let's give it a bit of a blur in the background. Yeah, that'll do. That's fine. Okay, so there's a bit more interest now. Now to give it that realistic depth of field, let's create a new camera. 50mm is fine. Open the camera options, put the depth of field on, change the depth of field right the way down. The focus distance to, I don't know, that looks, yeah, that looks pretty good. The aperture, let's knock that up just a touch. Further down actually. Yeah, that's good. Not as blurry. 70%. you go. So what we have now is we have our scrolling road, which will carry on scrolling towards us for as long as the composition is. A real world solution to a problem. Obviously we need things moving across this road, so we'll do that next. What we need to do now is we need elements to come towards us. In this case it's going to be little spurts of fire and lava jumping out the road. So to do this we need some point of reference to tie them to, which is actually moving the same as the road itself. So we need to create a null object. Make it 3D. On the position, Alt, click on the stopwatch, and we need to type in the following: value minus square bracket 0, 0, curly bracket time times 800 curly bracket square bracket. And what we'll have then is, if you look, we have a null object which is moving along with the composition itself. So it only makes sense that what we can do now is we can parent anything we want to move with the road to this null object, and its Z reference will move with the composition itself. So let's have a go. Okay, we're going to add a few elements now, and hopefully make them look like lava or fire or even smoke, using the particle system again. So let's start with the smoke from, say this is a volcano and we're going to have smoke emitting from the top of it. Let's commit to a new layer and let's call it smoke, and add the particle system to that layer and put it roughly where you want the smoke to start emitting. We'll change the particles to maybe not so much, because we're going to have quite large particles really. Let's have a sphere emitter, and we'll have the velocity right down. Maybe, I don't know, 10. We don't really need any velocity there. We could maybe widen that a touch. Okay, it's pretty good. Particle life is going to have to be quite long, so I'll look at 13 because the smoke doesn't dissipate so quickly. Let's feather it out because it's blurred, it's so far away. Size, yeah, let's just do that for now. But what we're going to do is we're going to go into the physics system and go to the air, the wind on the y-axis. We're going to maybe make it, I don't know, minus 30. Let's see what we have. Yeah, so we have smoke emitting from the top. Obviously it's not ideal at the moment, it's just white and it's very uniform and clunky. So if we go to the colour, let's set the colour to just to black for now, and take the opacity right down to maybe 10. In fact, the opacity over life, let's just, yeah, let's have it becoming more translucent over life, transparent over life, sorry. And transfer mode's fine. Physics time factor's fine. Yeah, it's all pretty good. Now let's change the appearance of the smoke so it doesn't look so much like a tree branch. Affect the size, maybe slightly. Affect position, so I don't know. Let's try 30. What do we have there? That's a little bit better. It's a little bit better. I think it might, opacity might need pushing up a touch there. Yeah, that's not too bad actually. If you move it down, that's okay. But what we can do is we can take the smoke layer itself, and if we go to the blend modes, maybe something overlay, soft light, maybe soft light. Yeah, that's okay. So let's take the emitter and touch it down a little bit. And if we take the smoke layer itself and just drag it back, we can see that basically we can start with the smoke rather than having it birth and then produce all the particles. It already starts with all the particles in place. So that's fine, then we just drag that out. That's quite nice. We might want to change the actual size, to be fair. Change the size and have maybe more of a random size. Yeah, that's pretty good. It's pretty good for what we want. If we just have... Yeah, so we'll take the opacity at the beginning. In fact, maybe use the preset there. Yeah, that's a bit better. So what that does is the particles don't just birth and then you see them pop up. The opacity gradually grows in and then grows out again. That's quite nice. Take the opacity of the entire layer down to maybe about 70. Some pretty good smoke there. Now you can have the smoke like this in the soft light, or you could put it on. You could just put it on normal, and you could have sort of a more dense cloud of smoke in the background. I quite like the soft light. It's quite nice. Okay, so now we're going to do a flame. The flame. Let's do a flame. Now, Particular has presets ready built for flames. However, we're going to have a little bit of fun making our own flame and hopefully helping people to understand the particle system just a little bit more. So I've created a new layer here, flame. In fact, I'll delete that and do it again. Layer, new solid, and flame one. Okay, we add particular to it, and if we scrub through the timeline, there we see the particle system. Now we're going to have the particles maybe around about here, I think. We'll drag them over to there. But we actually need the emitter of the particles to travel with the road. Now remember, we created the null, so what we're going to do is we're going to use the Z offset of this null to drive all of our elements that are coming towards us, including the Z offset of this particle system. So if we go into world transform of the particle system and we alt click on the Z offset to give on the stopwatch to give it an expression, we'll open the null, we'll click the pick whip on the particular Z offset, and we'll select the Z on the null position. and there we have, you can see the particle system is moving with the road. Now at the moment, what we can do, which is really good, is if we go into the emitter itself, we can still position it on the z-axis wherever we want, but it's still going to move with the road, with the null, which is quite nice. So what we want to do is maybe around about here on the timeline, we want to start the particle system emitting. How do we do this? We just simply select the flame and move it to where we want it to start, and then it begins. Now we want it to start there, but we want it to start further back, so let's just go to the position on the offset and we'll start it there. That's good. Starts there, moves with the road, stays there. Very good. Now let's try and make it look like a flame. Just put that down a touch. See if that's there. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so what we're going to do is it's going to start emitting particles there. It's going to emit, let's change this to 500. 100 is probably not enough. And after, I don't know, 2.5 seconds, excuse that, that's my phone. We're going to click the stopwatch again. Press page down to move 1 frame forward in time. And we're going to change that to 0. So what we have is we have, just before 2 seconds, we have the particle system emitting particles for about a second, and then the particles stop and disperse. So that's the beginnings of what we have, the mechanics behind the flame. Now we need to look to the particle itself and the particle shape to make it look like flames. Before we do that though, what we want to do is we need to go to the physics, and on the wind, on the y-axis, take it to, I don't know, -1000, just so we can spread the particles out. And there you see that sort of geyser effect. Geyser as in, you know, a water geyser, not a London Cockney wide boy. So now all we need to do is go back to the particle and start messing around with that. So where to start? Well, let's have a look. Particle life. We'll take that down to about 0.3 because it's too large at the moment. It's fine. Let's have it feathered, and we'll have a cloudlet, which more resembles a flame. Size, random, no, we don't need none of that. Size over life, it's going to get smaller over life as it moves away from the source, so that's okay. Opacity, random. Some flames are maybe translucent. 86. So what we got? Yeah, that's pretty good. Let's have a look. Let's have a look now. The color. We're gonna let's create a gradient. So we'll random from gradient, color over life. This is the gradient we'll be using. We'll just get rid of those. Or maybe make that, I don't know, a dark brown. We'll make that a red, and then orange, and we'll change it to add so we can pop the colours through. Alright, yeah, that's pretty good. I just want to tweak the Z a touch here, just to look as though it's having come actually through a crack. Yep. No, the velocity's too much. It's too fast at the moment, so let's take that down to maybe 40. You'll see more of a flame tail there. Okay, what else can we do? The turbulence field. Now this is quite important because there's a lot of turbulence in flames, So effect size is going to be maybe 50. Effect position is going to be quite large. So you see that sort of that wavy sort of almost natural effect. Size. Let's change the initial size. Okay, that's popping just far too much at the moment. Let's take the opacity down. That's pretty good. It's pretty good for a flame. Okay, and then what we'll do is have some smoke as well, because obviously there's no smoke without fire. So we'll continuously emit the smoke. We'll not have too much. Emit probability maybe 6. Quite a few particles. Let's knock the life up a touch. Let's have a cloudlet again. Maybe give it some velocity. You'll see things start to evolve as I change the settings. Size over life, no. Opacity, not a lot of opacity at all, because obviously these this is just smoke. So color over life, let me take that into there, and we'll just have it darkened. Where are we? Okay, we'll start emitting it a bit later, and start emitting a bit later after, obviously after the flames have finished, but we will, yeah. And what we need to do is we have a gravity control here. Let's put that at -1000 so it matches the wind. And we should have some sort of smoke effect there. That's pretty good. Now let's make it look a bit more like smoke, because at the minute it does not. I'll change the size. The opacity over life. That's maybe a bit. Yeah, there's not enough there, I don't think. Let's change. Yeah, that looks okay. Okay, size over life. And turbulence position. We don't want it too much, but we want it to disperse a bit. So yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay, so now we have our first flame, and we're just going to duplicate it. I must say, when I go through Trapcode particular settings, I do tend to mumble quite a bit, so please excuse me. But it's not important, because if you just follow the numbers I actually dial in, if you wish, then you should end up with the same result. So, the second flame. We'll go to the flame, we'll select it, we'll Control D, duplicate it, and we'll rename it to Flame 2. Now, we'll have this flame at about 4 seconds, so we'll just cheat it along the timeline, and we'll open the particular settings and move it back in Z space and move it across and forward just a little bit. So let's have a look. Yep, that's pretty good. So 1 frame, 2 frame, we'll have one more at about 7 seconds. We'll have it in this area here. So we'll select frame 2, Control D, duplicate that to frame 3, and where are we? Yeah, let's just first move it all the way back in Z space, go to 7 seconds on the timeline, move it along to roughly where about we want the flame to be born, and then we'll just relocate it. So we're going back, and maybe slightly to the right. Okay, so what have we got? Yeah, that's pretty good. We've got the 3rd flame there. Now, you'll notice on the video that each time a flame appears, there's a slight camera shake. So what we're going to do, we're going to animate the camera position using a new solid. We're going to call it slider. And we're going to click on the eyeball so we don't see it. Going to go to effects and presets, select the slider control, double click that, and that puts our slider on there. Now we're going to open up slider, effects, slider, and we have the value. We're also going to open the camera position, and we're going to alt click on the stopwatch. That gives us the ability to put an expression in. We're going to create a temporary variable. Select the pick whip, drag it up to the slider value, and whatever value this slider is at now is basically going to be in this temporary variable here. So now we're going to use a wiggle. 12 times temp, comma 5 times temp, close bracket, semicolon. Now what this does is all we have to do now is keyframe the value for this slider, and if we say keyframe it to 1, then we will wiggle 12 times temp, which is 12, so we'll wiggle 12 times comma 5. If we leave it at 0, 12 times 0 is obviously 0, so there'll be no camera shake. So we can animate the camera shake using this slider value here, which is quite handy. So let's go to the first flame, around about there, and what we're going to do is click on the slider, put a keyframe in there, press page down to move forward 1 frame on the timeline, and we're going to set it to 1. We're going to wait till the move to the flame is dispersed. I'm going to set it back to 0. So what that should do is, when that happens, we have a slight camera shake. Now we're just going to copy that, select all the keyframes, Control C to copy, move to the second flame, Control V, paste them there, move to the third flame, Control V, paste them there. So we now have the camera shake on all of the flames. Cool. So that's looking pretty good. Okay, so now it's the text. So around about 9 seconds we're going to have the text zoom in towards the screen. So let's have a new layer, a text layer. We'll type the lava road. Let's put it around about center. Maybe around about there. Okay, let's make it a 3D layer. In fact, first let's comp it. Add it to make a new composition. and we'll call it lava text. Okay, let's make it a 3D layer. The reason we comp the text is because later on we're going to use this as a layer emitter for another particle system. So anyhow, we just basically have the text in a comp at the moment. We made a 3D, and we're going to have it reveal itself about 9.5 seconds. So let's take the position of it, and I'm going to push it back about 20,000 on the Z. Okay, I'm going to stick a keyframe on there, move a few frames, and stick it to 0. So it zooms from the distance into the foreground. Let's see how quick that is. Yeah, that's okay, maybe a little too quick. That's good. So now what we want to do is we want to create some shadow for the lava road so it looks as though it's actually sitting on top of the road. So layer, new solid, black, and then I'm just going to take a rounded rectangle tool, draw a mask on the black solid layer, like so. Oops. Select the mask and just move it, tilt it, and scale it till it looks okay as shadow for the text. It's pretty good. I'll give the mask a bit of a feather, and I'll press T and take the overall opacity of the layer down to maybe 70, and yeah, that looks okay. So then all we simply need to do is make the back solid, which is the shadow. In fact, let's rename that to text shadow, and simply parent that to the lava text, so the shadow moves with the text. It's pretty good. And now for the final touch, which is some camera shake when it hits the screen. Now we've already got this set up, so all we need to do is click on the slider layer, press U to reveal the keyframes, copy the keyframes there, Control C, and let's have a look. When it hits the screen, about there, Control V, paste them there. Maybe not so much. Let's just cheat this in a touch. And let's maybe change this value here. If you double click on it, you can change the value. I think we'll change that to 2. A bit more of a shake on this. So yeah, we've got quite a good shake there. Okay, now we're going to, once the flames hit, we have the shake, and around about 10.5 seconds we're going to make the lava road actually almost look as though it's on fire or smouldering. Now this is just off the top of my head, which I'm adding on at the end. No, I haven't done this previously, so please bear with me. If everything goes to plan, it should be fine. So let's have a new solid, and let's call it text flame. Click OK, add particular, and we're going to go to emitter. We're going to choose a layer emitter, bump them right up to about 11,000 particles per second. We'll have a directional. We'll change velocity 0, all the velocities to 0. And we'll select the layer, which is the lava text, and there you see all of the text, all of the particles being born on the lava road layer. Now we want it to happen about 10.5 seconds, so let's grab the layer and just push it along the timeline. so the text hits and then starts to smoke or whatever. Okay, so let's go to do some physics. Go into the air and we'll set the wind to about -50. And we've got some going up then. That's fine. We need to change the life. Take the life of the particle down a touch. Take it down to about, I don't know, 1 for now. Change the sphere to a cloudlet because it gives more of a flame effect. We'll have 100% feather on that. Maybe take that down to 3. And what we'll do now is just grab the particle layer and drag it below the text layer, just so it doesn't obscure all the text. So we've got something happening there. It doesn't look great at the moment, but we're going to remedy that. Okay, so let's have a look at opacity. Let's take the opacity right down to about, I don't know, 30. Okay, let's have the size random up to 100. It's a little bit better. And size over life, we'll make it go smaller over life. Opacity over life is the same. Okay, so that's looking okay. We can mess with the size a bit now, I think. It's not too bad. And if we go down to the turbulence field, and we'll choose effect size, make it a bit more maybe, and we'll choose effect position just to give it that little bit of twirl. Yeah, that sort of looks okay, but we can still see the particles being born. We don't really want that, so we need to change the opacity over life to something like that, and then we won't see the particles actually being born. Okay, that's pretty good. Now let's change the opacity again, knock it down a bit further. That's okay. Yeah, that's alright. Let's change the mode to add so we get more of a flame effect. And you know what? I think I'm going to give that a bit more life. And see how we're looking. That's not too bad. That's not too bad. Okay. Okay, so let's put it on full. And you can see the final result there. So thanks for listening. Thanks for your time. I hope you've learned something. I hope you can put it to good use, and just get in touch, show me what you've done. I'd be very interested to see. So I'll see you all later. Bye bye.